Hey guys, welcome to Electronic Dance Money, your number one business resource for making money as electronic musicians and producers. Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Electronic Dance Money. I hope you guys are doing well. Right now, as you're listening to this, I'm on a little quick vacation, heading home to hang out for a few days. So I'm relaxing at the time of this being released. But we're going to be jumping into the third and final part of this whole series on, essentially starting your own service-based business. But like we've talked about, many of the things we are discussing can be replicated in many other different businesses. This series is specific to services because I feel like that's a majority of what people do in our industry is all built around service-based stuff. And we've kind of been on the same topic of teaching and coaching, how to get that sort of business started, why you should, why it can be effective. And today we're going to be jumping into the third part of this entire series, which is all based around sales. Sales is a really interesting topic. It's one that's not talked about much. It's one that people want to stay far away from. A lot of people don't like it. It feels icky and gross. And I 100% understand that. The last thing you really want is to sound like a used car salesman. And so that's why we're going to be talking about that today, because we want to stay away from that. The point of a salesman or a salesperson, the point of doing sales is not to sound cringy or really sound like you're trying to sell something. That's not the point of sales. And we'll be going into what that looks like in just a minute. But this is a skill you will apply across the board to so many different facets in your life as a musician, whether or not you're trying to get sold to a record label. So you're trying to sell your track to a record label. There are things you're going to be able to take out of this that you can apply to something like that through an email or talking with someone in person, getting booked for shows. There's a lot of different ways that you can apply the things that we're talking about today in different ways. If you can get creative and think about it, this should be a good reference for you. So what it's going to look like today is we're going to be breaking down here in just a minute what your job is when you're trying to sell. And this is primarily, the things that we're talking about are primarily directed towards a sales call. So if you're doing teaching and coaching, you have a website designed like that, someone's filled out your quote request form, or you sent them through, let's say, a workshop and they signed up to do a quick 20-minute discovery call with you. Either way, they've filled something out, they're interested in working with you, and they've booked a call with you now. And now you need to get on that phone and you need to be able to sell to them. But like I said, you're not doing it in a used car salesman way. You're doing it in the right way of selling. And then the rest of the episode will actually be talking about the breakdown of the sales call, the steps you need to make to go from point A to point B, where you're closing the deal and actually you've now sold the product, or you sold the client on the product. First, let's talk about what your job is when you are selling. And actually, before we even get into that, why don't we talk about what your job is not, what you're not supposed to do? So a sales call and selling is not about showing that you're the best at everything you do or whatever it is that you do. That is expressed entirely in your the kind of the marketing side of your business, the copy on your website, the copy in your ad, the webinar, whatever you did previously to get them on this phone call, you've already you've already sold that part of you. They clearly know you're good at whatever it is that you do. So this is not the time to spend trying to convince them even more that you're good at what you do. Clearly, they know that. That's why they've booked the call. Second, the sales call and selling, it's not to try and get the most money possible during the call. That's not your goal. That just like what we were talking about in the last marketing episode, that a good sales call can be, or I should say, selling more and getting the most money possible at the end of the sales call can be a symptom of a good sales call. Just like good marketing, the symptom of good marketing is going to be selling more of your product or getting more quote requests. That is an outcome. That's a symptom of good marketing. You just need to find what is the best marketing for you and your business. It's the same thing during this sales call. So, like, getting the most money out of a sale is a symptom or an outcome of a good sales call. You won't need to try to get the most money out of it. The person you have on the phone, if you can express your value enough and do that in an appropriate way, they won't give a shit about the price. They don't care about it. And you'll hear me talk about this near the end of the episode, but your goal is for them to never even ask about price. Because if you have to push and prod them to get them to ask questions about what the cost of the product is, then that's something that's not even on their mind, and they don't give a shit what the cost is going to be. At that point, you're going to tell them what your cost is, and they're going to go, that makes sense. So they won't care. They're down to invest however much they need to invest to hire you for whatever it is that you do. All right, so third, selling in a sales call is not about letting them take control over the conversation and just letting them talk forever. You are here to guide them to find where you fit in their solution or their problem. Like, where is it that your skills come into play and get them the results that they want and that they expect? And so this kind of leads into what your job truly is during a sales call like this. And your entire job is discovering their needs, who they are as a person, where they're currently at in their career or whatever they're struggling with, and where they want to be and how you can get them there. That is purely what your job is during the sales call. So expressing that, you can start to see how you can pick apart someone that's really bad at a sales call and someone that's really good. Because when you're in that sales call, the person who's essentially what might not even feel like is selling is finding out who the hell you are. What are you struggling with? Why are you struggling with that? Where is it that you want to be, that when you get over this struggle, you'll be there? And how can they get you there? So that is your entire job during the sales call. And that's going to be the first half of the sales call, is figuring out where they are, where they want to be, and how you can solve that issue for them, so that when it comes down to give that price at the end, and then hopefully, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, collect the deposit on the phone. We'll talk about why. They'll be saying, yes, let's do it. I'm ready. They're going to pull out their card immediately. Now, the reason why you want to find out where they're currently at and where they want to be is, again, because you're trying to find how you can provide the most value to them. How are you the solution to their current issue or their current problem? If you can, and this is the thing too, is you're also figuring out if they're going to be a good fit for you. Sales calls allow you to find out who they are as a person, what their issue is, the issue that they're having and needing to hire you, not their issue personally with you, but it allows you to pick out clients who would not be a good fit for you, so you can decline and refer them somewhere else. Or as of recently, I'm having a couple of issues where I'm getting a number of quote requests from singer-songwriters, specifically female singer-songwriters. So I need to figure out where that's coming from and why. But The good news is I know a lot of singer-songwriter producers who can help them out. And so I'm able to help this person out who reached out to me while also helping out a fellow producer who could possibly refer people to me. So the sales call or even quote request can kind of give you that sort of information so you can determine, am I a good fit for this person? And if you're not, this is where having a really strong network comes into play. And not even just a strong network in electronic music for us EDM producers or whatever we do in the EDM world, a strong network of a bunch of different people who own recording studios, singer-songwriter producers, mixing engineers for rock bands, mastering engineers for rock bands, all of these different people within the industry and the umbrella of the music industry. So all these different genres, if you know a hip hop producer or someone who does mixing for hip hop or someone who just records rappers, these are all really great people to at least know, have an email for, so you can reach out to them, so that if you get someone like this on a sales call, you can stop the conversation there. You don't have to waste your time or their time any further on the sales call. And you can say, hey, I'm not a good fit for this project. Unfortunately, I don't work in that field. However, I do know a number of people. Let me reach out to them, see if this would be a good fit for them. Let me get some information from you, and then we can go from there. That person's going to really appreciate it because you're kind of doing the work for them, and really you're not doing a ton of work. And then the other person who, let's say it's someone who records rap vocals, and you're speaking to a rapper who needs to record, well then perfect. You can reach out to this person and say, hey, I've got someone who wants to record with you. I can't do the work. This is not my style. Here you go. And that person's going to appreciate that very much. Hopefully they do. And hopefully they return the favor later on. If if you're doing mixing and mastering for EDM like me, hopefully they come over and they can send you some work if that sort of stuff comes their way as well. Remember, we need to get into the attitude of the go-giver, or You Get What You Get by Björkvin. If you didn't listen to those episodes, I'll link them, and I'll link those books as well. But in the show notes, that'll be at enviousaudio.com/episode 55. But we need to get into this go-giver mentality. You want to put that good karma into the world because it will come back. Trust me, it comes back in ways you never thought. So we need to help out other people in order to get other people to want to help us out as well. We're all in this shit together in the music industry. And if you want people there for you, you got to be there for them and try to help support them as well. All right, why don't we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the sales call itself? So we talked about how the point of the sales call is you need to get from point A to point B, which is the start of the sales call to the end of it, where you're either taking a deposit or scheduling some sort of follow-up. While you're getting from point A to point B, you need to be creating as much momentum as possible. This is what's going to get them to want to close the deal immediately. We talked about in the last episode about marketing. When you're doing that webinar, and let's say you're selling a course at the end of the webinar, the whole time during the workshop or the webinar, you're just building momentum the entire time. You're getting people excited. You're getting them into a spot where they feel like, yes, I can do this. This is exactly where I need to be. This is what I've been looking for. And you need to capitalize on that momentum. You do this by trying to get them to purchase immediately at the end of the webinar. In this case, you do this by trying to get them to purchase immediately at the end of the webinar or the workshop when they're really excited. You've built that momentum and you've gained their trust. Otherwise, if you don't get that immediately, you're giving them the opportunity to decide that if they don't want to move forward. You're getting them to leave, go back to their normal day, whatever they were doing, either forget about you or they're sitting there thinking, I don't know. And you failed to successfully get them excited enough or gained enough momentum for them to want to be a part of whatever it is that you're doing, even if you know that either you or your product is going to be the best thing for them. So building momentum during the sales call is going to be your second goal, next to actually discovering where they are, where they want to be, and how you can actually get them there. So let's say you've actually gotten on the call now. You have someone who's interested in whatever it is that you're selling, and they want to discuss about the project a little bit more, talk about working with you. You're going to start the phone call off first with a little bit of small talk. So this is going to be step one of the actual sales call. The second that they pick up, you're starting the small talk section. And this is usually going to take about 1 to 2 minutes. Shouldn't be any more than that. And this can really be whatever the hell you want it to be, what you're talking about. You have to make sure that they get comfortable. This is just getting them comfortable. This is probably the first time you guys have ever talked on the phone. This is the first time possibly the first time either one of you have heard each other's voices. So it's going to be a little bit awkward. And that's why you want to, set the pace. Don't make it awkward. Act as though you guys have known each other for years and get them in a comfortable space, as well as get you in a comfortable space. When COVID first started, it was really easy to start sales call with small talk, talking about COVID. At the time of this recording, everything is kind of opening up. So that could be something that you discuss, talk about wherever it is that they live and how things are going with opening up. So that could be something you're talking about currently at the time of this recording. If you're listening to this in a year, we're probably all already opened up. So that's not something you can necessarily talk about, but you just need to get the pace of the conversation going and get them as comfortable as possible. Again, no more than about 1 to 2 minutes ish. Once you don't want to go too far into that, because again, you are here to talk business. Once you've talked a little bit of small talk, then you're going to be moving into step 2, which is specifically you, setting the expectations for the call. Remember, I mentioned that you need to control the conversation. You're part of the sales call is not letting the other person control the conversation and just talk about whatever the hell they want. If you allow the other person to take control of the conversation and guide it wherever the hell they want, the conversation is going to drift off into nothingness, and you've already lost the sale there. You're not going to get them to take a deposit on the phone. You're probably not going to be able to book a project. You need to make sure that you have control over the conversation, and that's what setting expectations is going to do here. You need to make sure that you give them a general brief explanation of how the call is going to go, kind of what you're going to be discussing, and that's pretty much it. Just set general expectations so that there's a nice guide there, so they know, okay, this person has kind of things set up with how everything's going to go. And that's going to kind of signal to them, okay, we're not going to be doing any sort of ranting on anything crazy off topic. And if they start doing that, you got to try to rein them back. But once you've set the expectations for the call and you've kind of given them a nice brief explanation of what that's going to look like, be sure to ask them if that sounds good to them. Essentially, what you're doing is you're still making them feel as though they have control over the situation. They're not going to object. I've never heard someone object, but again, you're making them feel comfortable. They still have control. You're allowing them to express whether or not they're okay with everything. And it's just setting comfort, setting control, making them feel like they have more control over the situation. And like I said, I've never had someone object to say, no, that's not okay. That would be crazy. And I guarantee it's not going to happen to you either. Again, this should not go more than a minute. This is very brief. The explanation of what the sales call is going to be about should be brief, like probably 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. Don't need to explain everything in detail, just kind of a general overview of the next following steps that we're going to be talking about. All right, so step 3, you want to get to the reason for the actual call itself. Now, this kind of plays in step 3 and step 4 can kind of play off of each other. You may very well know the reason for the call based on any sort of quote request they may have filled out. But I mean, take for me, for instance, when people fill out my quote request form, it usually includes, oh, I need help with mixing. Oh, I need mastering. Oh, I need mixing and mastering. I need a lesson. Like, there's only a few things that they could be needing, and it's usually expressed in the quote request section. So sometimes I may skip this part because I already know what the call is, the reason for the call. However, I may reinforce it, make sure that there's nothing else, and say, hey, just want to make sure it sounds like you're needing this or you're needing that. Is there anything else? Is there any other reason for the call? I may set something like that just to see if possibly there's something else that they're needing help with that either I can connect them with someone with, or I know how to do and I can point them in the right direction. But essentially, you just need to figure out why they're here, why they need you, and what the issue is that they're having. What the issue is that prompted them to actually reach out. With teaching and coaching, that's going to be this is going to be a better section for something like that with teaching and coaching. If someone filled out your quote request form, or emailed you and or maybe you're talking to them on Instagram and they're interested in hiring you for coaching, you should 100% be doing sales calls. You're going to dig into the root issue of whatever it is that they're needing help with, and that allows you to establish a good outline on what coaching is going to look like with them, and you can better explain what it is you guys may need to focus on in the sales call. And especially with this section, finding out the reason for their call. Sure, they may need coaching, but with what? What are they struggling with? Do they need to get booked more? Do they need to learn how to actually write a melody? Do they need to learn sound design? What do they need? What are they struggling with? What do they need help with? So you can see we're starting to get into that needs discovery process. We're figuring out where they're currently at and where they want to be. And that's going to be what we're going to be talking about in the next step. But this should take probably 1 to 3 minutes. Don't spend too much time on this because there should be only a couple of things that they may need help with. Don't let them ramble on a laundry list of things. You need to make everything concise and kind of pinpoint what it is that you really need to focus on. And that's what we're going to be getting into this next step on step 4, figuring out their current situation. This is the where are they now? And that's why I said step 3 and step 4 kind of play into each other, because in step 3, you're finding out the reason for the call. And then in step 4, you're going into, okay, the reason for the call. What's their current situation with that issue that they currently have? And then you need to figure out where they want to be when asking that. So when you're prompting the question of, okay, what's your current situation? You can prompt it also with, where are you at currently with that? Like you're obviously struggling with this. Well, what is it that you're struggling about it? Okay, now where do you want to be? And this is where you're actually pinpointing that pain point. You're getting to that very specific pain point that they have that you can more than likely solve for them. And this these sections, like these first 3, or really even 3 and 4 are just that needs discovery process, finding out if they're a good fit for you and if you're going to be a good fit for them. This is the point of the sales call. And this is how you make it feel like you are not selling them a product. You need to make sure that they're a good fit for you so that that they'll leave at the end of the day happy. You don't want to get a bad client out of this, or you don't want someone to leave with a bad taste in their mouth. Just the same way that they don't want to go to someone that they know is not going to be able to do the job right, or they led them down the wrong path, and at the end of the day, they go, this is not at all what I was expecting or wanting. So this is where you're figuring out their current situation, if you're going to be a good fit. If you're not a good fit, if you're not a good fit, you need to be upfront and honest about that, and you need to figure out what can you do to make sure that they get put in the right hands of the right person. Because that's how you get them leaving, going, that person was great to me. They were good. And if you lead them to someone that does the right thing for them, does the right job, and they become extremely happy, they still see you as being someone that helped them. And they're still willing, if they understand at the end of the day, okay, they can't help me out with that because of this. Well, maybe they know someone that works in your field that needs your help, and they might point that person in your direction. Same with the person you connect this potential lead or client to someone in your network. So let's take that rapper, for instance. They come in, I go, listen, it sounds like you need recording with vocals. Unfortunately, that's just not something that I do. However, I do know so-and-so that records in your area. Let me reach out to them and have them contact you, or I'll connect you to, and I think you're going to be really happy with them. The rapper appreciates me connecting them with someone that I trust, because they probably trust me at this point, or are getting there. So they know anyone I connect them to, they can probably trust. And now the person I connected the rapper with in my network trusts me a bit more and is willing to throw me a bone because I've now thrown them a bone. Again, the go-giver. You get what you give. This is what this stuff is all about. Now, if you're digging into their current situation and you're figuring out what it is that they're struggling with, then you can pretty quickly you'll know, okay, this is a good fit for me. Let's take my situation, for instance. I do mixing and mastering for EDM producers. So usually my goal is to find what is their pain point with mixing. If someone needs a mix from me, what is it that they're struggling with in terms of mixing? And usually I have them send me a track of theirs before we actually jump on a call. That way I can get an idea of what they're struggling with. But I want to dig into some more of the things that they're struggling with within their mix. And this gives me the ability to further express my skill sets and knowing deeply about their current issue and how to solve it. I can give them solutions right away so that they feel more comfortable. They trust me more and realize, yes, this is the right person for me. They know what they're talking about and they know what they're doing, and they're going to get me the results that I want. So maybe I'm prodding them more about their mixing skills and asking some questions about how they EQ, maybe how they compress, how many layers they have to different, leads or bass sounds. And then this is where I can further express my skill sets and going, okay, so it sounds like you might be using too much EQ, and you're probably using too much EQ because you're not using the right sounds with your notes, which is causing you to EQ. It's thinning out your mix. And then you start making further bad mixing decisions. And then you get down this rabbit hole of just never ending bad mixing decisions. So we need to start from point A by taking away that EQ. And I can get into dealing with some of these things, some of the issues that they're having, giving them some real feedback and advice. And that's going to allow them to go, oh my God, I think you're right. I think this is the issue that I'm having. And it does sound like you are going to be able to do what you say you can do. You sound like the person that you say you are on your website, with your ad copy. So I'm establishing my knowledge of their current issue, how I can solve it, and that I do have the solution to their problem. This is all setting it up so that they go, yes, I want to move forward with the project. This is going to take a handful of minutes. It can take anywhere from 3, 5, possibly even 10 minutes. It really just depends on what their current situation is and how much you can prod out of them and figure out what the next steps are going to be for that. So now we're going to move on to step 5. And this is going to be a real quick one, but after you've discussed their current situation and it sounds like you are a good fit for this, then this is where you want to find out their timeline. When do they want to get work done? This also allows you to show any scarcity in your current schedule if you have it. Remember, if you have it, do not be disingenuous. do not make false scarcity in your schedule to either get them to book sooner or faster or be able to charge them more. That is a terrible practice. It's a terrible move. A lot of people can see right through it, or eventually you'll get caught in that sort of thing. So if you do have true scarcity, if you don't have a lot of time, if your schedule is booked up, this is your opportunity to say, okay, you want this project done in a couple of days. Unfortunately, like I don't think I can get it done in 2 days, but my schedule's pretty booked up, but we can get you in for within 3 days. Something like that. This also allows you to increase your price because it shows that a lot of people really want to work with you. It gets them to be like, oh, this person's valuable, so I want to work with them as well. And this allows you to increase your price without them even really knowing or caring, because they know how valuable you and your time is. And, you know, you should be appropriately paid for depending on your schedule. You know, if you have a fully booked schedule, your time is worth more. My rates float depending on how filled up my schedule is. In May, my entire schedule was booked up, all of May. So I was charging the most for my services to get people on my calendar, and I had people waiting almost 2 weeks to get work done because I just had so much lined up. Going into June, it's starting to slow down more, and my schedule is not as filled up, and my rates are coming down. So you can play around with that, especially when you're talking to them about, okay, what's your timeline? Well, I want to get work done in a month. Okay, we can schedule in a month for sure. And you probably have some stuff cleared up, and you can book that at whatever appropriate rate you see fit, depending on what your schedule currently says. This will usually take about a minute or so. Don't spend too much time on the timeline stuff. It's really not that complicated. You just want to get a good idea of when they want to get started, especially if they don't book that day. You have a good follow-up schedule. Like, you know, okay, if they want to book in a month, I should follow up in a couple of weeks, and then a week after that, and then finally follow up a couple of days before they were saying they want to get work done. That way you have follow-ups, you're staying top of mind, and you know where they're currently at. Now we're on to step 6 of the sales call. And this is the holy grail of the entire sales call. This is the actual pitch. This is where you tell them, hey, it sounds like you'd be a good fit for me. Or, hey, it doesn't sound like you'd be a good fit for me, and this is why. But usually by this point, you can tell if they're a good fit for you, and usually they are a good fit. So if they're a good fit for you, simply say, hey, you know what? I think you would be a perfect client for me. I think we can get you the results that you really are looking for. I think I can do everything that you're asking and everything that you're needing. And then you just ask them, hey, would you mind if I go over what it's like to work with me as a client, as well as kind of the big picture of everything that I do? Again, you want to establish some control on their part in the situation. You want to make them feel comfortable and like they are a part of this. It's not just you rambling on and spitting out questions, but they're actually in control of the conversation as well. Again, I doubt that they're going to say no. They do want to hear it. And then you just give them another overview of kind of your process. You know, earlier on in the sales call, you gave them an overview of what the sales call is going to be. You set the expectations. Now we're going to be talking about how you work, what it is that you do. And we can go over kind of what my sales script currently looks like when I'm talking to someone about mixing and mastering. So usually I just go over like, okay, so from here I ask them, what DAW are you working in? Usually it's one of 3. It's either Logic, FL, or Ableton. If it's Ableton or FL, I go, awesome, sweet. Well, you're in luck. For you, you'll be able to just send me over your entire project. I'll have you prep it a little bit, send that over. I work entirely in your project. Once I'm done with the mix, I actually send you a breakdown video of me explaining what I did in the project, why I did it, and why some of the things you were doing weren't necessarily working out the best. Once I send that all over to you, you can either make your revisions within your project itself and just send the project back over to me. I'll remaster it, or you give me a list of revisions, and then from there, I'll revise the track until you're totally happy with it. Depending on the route you want to go, if you want to self-release or get signed to a label, I'll be able to send that track over to some labels that I know and possibly get you signed. And so that's generally giving a good brief overview of what it's like to work with me. I'm pointing out the value proposition points. You know, I work within your project. I send you your project back. I explain my mixing, and you also get revisions. I'm giving them all of the value and what it's like to work with me, but then I'm still explaining like, hey, you know, we're going to be doing the mixing, we're going to be doing the mastering, but then I'm sprinkling in all of the nice added value propositions that I can, so it makes it look like my service is more appealing, and it should be. You know, those are all the things that I do, and I do them genuinely, and I do them as best as I can, and so it's not a lie. I'm not trying to lead them on to something that I don't do. These are all things that I actually do, and those are the best things about my service. Those are the things all of my clients love. It's one of the reasons why I have many clients come back to me, because I actually give them their projects back. I work within their stuff. That means they can look at everything I did. They can look at all of the plugins I'm using. They get all of my mixing secrets. And then if they have any remixes in the future, they can send them out to producers. So it's still all of their own stuff. From there, once you're done giving them the overview of what you do, simply ask them again, hey, does that sound like you'd be a good fit for this? And usually, again, if you've expressed your value appropriately, they're going to say, yeah, this is awesome. And you go, okay, awesome. Do you have any questions for me? And this is where you get as many questions out of them as possible. If you've done the sales call well, sometimes they won't have any questions at all. Usually the first question that's going to come up is, what's the price of this? What's the cost? How much is this going to cost me? That's usually the first question that comes up. But again, if you've done so well at selling yourself, at selling your value and what you provide, sometimes they'll forget to ask that question. And that is a great spot to be in, because usually they don't give a shit about what the price is, because they know how valuable your services are. Now, this next part is probably the most important part out of all of them. One, you know, if they have any questions, answer those questions. But when they get to the pricing question, either answer it, or if they don't ask it, prod them along. If they don't have any questions, prod them along, because you need to get the pricing question out of the way. However you want to prod them, you can. I usually ask them, hey, do you have any questions about getting started with me? If they don't, they go, no, I think you answered everything. I say, well, do you have any questions about price? And usually they go, oh yeah, you know what is the cost of everything? This is the most important fucking part ever. This is how you can actually close the deal on the sale, okay? You give them your price, and then you shut the fuck up. We're going to say that again. Give them the price and shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. Do not say anything until they talk. The reason why you do that is because they probably have a million things that are going through their mind, especially if you've been on this call for 15 minutes or so now. You've given them the price. They may be thinking, well, I need to clear this with my husband or my wife. I need to figure out how I'm going to make that payment. Do I have enough money on my credit card? Can I even afford that? Is this something that I really want to do? They might be running through all of these questions, and you need to let them think about those things. And you need to not say anything until they say something. And usually, for me, and the way I set up my sales calls, it's very rare. I think I have like an 80% close ratio on my sales calls. That 80-20 principle. I think 20% of sales calls don't turn out to be anything. Most of the time I can collect the deposit on the phone, and that's what we're going to be talking about here in just a minute. But this is where your first objection may come into play. And this is what the rest of the sales call is all about, is just about dealing with any objections or concerns. That's all you're addressing for the rest of the call. This is why you leave questions to the end, so that you can deal with them at the end and you've already explained everything. Like I said, with the price they have them, there may be so many different factors that come in that could possibly be at play. And you might need to dig into those. If they say, oh, that's a little bit, you go, okay, well, what's the reason for that? Do you have a girlfriend that wouldn't be okay if you used a card? Or, you might need to prod them a little bit more, find out what it is about the price. If they have a concern about the price, find out what the concern is. Sometimes they have a partner that they need to talk about. Let's say it's, for EDM producers, if you're coaching a duo, let's say there's two producers in a duo, maybe they want to work together as a duo and the partner's not on the phone. Well, you go, okay, well, if you need to talk to them, that's totally fine. I can if you use proposals, you can go, I can send over a proposal for you so you two can look at that. I would be more than comfortable jumping on a call with him or her and talking about all the stuff we talked about today. You need to clear these objections and discuss them and figure out what is the best answer to solve this issue that is currently here. And this is about any other concerns or any other objections, any possible scenarios that could be a roadblock for you getting this project. You need to get it all out on the table here, discuss it, take notes, and come up with an action plan on how you guys can tackle that and handle it. If they don't have the money, it could be simply, well, okay, maybe you can save up for a couple of months and we can come back to it. Listen, I think you would be a really good fit for this. I think you would get a big benefit out of it. Or if you know how to do crowdfunding, then that can be an option. You can say, hey, we can sit down and I can send you resources for crowdfunding. You could set up crowdfunding for your project, get the money that you need, and then come to me and we can start working on the project. There's so many answers to some of the objections and concerns that they may have, and you need to figure those out. But again, specifically with pricing, that's where most of your objections are actually going to come from. Just make sure you don't fucking say anything after you give them the price. Shut up and let them think and let them answer. You never talk until they say something after you've given them the price. It's the most important thing about the call. Now, if you've dealt with any objections that don't have to do with price, if they're okay with the price, then that's where you go, awesome. Do you want to schedule today? If you can get your car, this is where you'd sign up for Stripe or something so that you can type in their card information right away. And you can say, hey, I have a 40% deposit. Maybe you have a 50% deposit, whatever your deposit is to get them booked on your actual schedule or your calendar. Take it here and now. Just like with the, selling a course in a workshop, at the end of it, maybe you give a discounted rate for the course because they're in that workshop. You need them to get some skin in the game. You need to create commitment with them. Don't let them hang up the phone and then start thinking about it and decide, I don't want to do it. If you've built up all of this momentum, if you've gotten them excited, you need them to act on that excitement so that they don't fall through the cracks. And again, we don't want to be used car salesmen here. That's not our job. We just know we've gone through the process with them. We've talked with them about their issues. We know, hey, this would be a really good client for me. I would be able to do really good work for them. And I do believe that they would be happy with everything I do. So you need to make sure that you get the commitment from them. And that's what the deposit is. So you say, hey, I can get you scheduled in for this day. Let's say their timeline was, I want to get it done in 2 weeks. Okay, well, I can get you scheduled in exactly in 2 weeks. All we have to do is we can take a quick 40% deposit from this price of the project. Let's do it now so that you're scheduled in and no one else books that day from you. And that way we have something down and we can get started right away. Simple as that. You just need to get them committed. And that's what the deposit's going to do. They've got skin in the game. They've already paid a portion of the project. They can pay the rest of it before you guys really get started. But that way you've gained on that momentum. They're even more excited after they made that payment. They leave the call going, sweet, I'm doing this. This is something that's going to happen and it's going to be beneficial for me. With that section, with, pitching yourself on step 6 and then really crushing any further objections or concerns they might have, that's kind of step 7. all of that is probably going to be the majority of your talk. It could go anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. I would lean closer to the 10-minute side, depending on how many objections they have. But essentially, your entire phone call from that point on is essentially finished. So at the end of the day, you're going to be on the call for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. I would suggest timing these and paying attention to how long each section really takes you to go over and see where you possibly even lose calls. Because there is this theory of like, think of an arch. So the sales call starts at one of the bottoms of the arch and it starts going up, 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 up. And there is a peak to the call where you start losing the call and the arch starts going down. So that's your momentum essentially. There's a peak to that momentum where you can capitalize on it and you can get the deposit and make the sale. But if you go anywhere past that, you start degrading the call, and the longer you're on the call, the more exhausted everyone gets, the less everyone cares, and the less likely you're going to actually be able to make that sale. That's fucking it though, guys. That is your sales call. That is what sales look like. That's how you sell without looking or sounding like a used car salesman. So we want to make sure we stay away from that. This is your guide. I've given you the complete steps on how to actually do a sales call. So start utilizing this. If you have a service-based business, or you're wanting to start a service-based business, use this as a reference when you start taking sales calls. I think sales calls are extremely important, especially that price point stuff. You know, being able to physically actually tell them the price on the phone and be able to crush any objections to that price is way better than sending them an email and then letting them sit there for days looking at it or ignoring you, or even with a proposal. Talk to them on the phone about it. It makes things so much easier, so much better. That's it, guys. Like I said, I'm currently on vacation right now, relaxing at the time of this being released. So if you're listening to this a week later, I'm back home. But you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you guys next time. If any of you guys are interested in mixing and mastering, go on and head over to enviousaudio.com. We can talk there. I'll get you on a sales call, and I will repeat everything I talked about here. We'll go over the same process, and I'll possibly sell you on my services. We'll see. But if you guys are struggling with mixing and mastering, go on and head over to enviosaudio.com. Other than that, I'll see you guys for the next episode. Take care.